to invite a number of those who participated in the first round of dialogues to just give me a little insight as to what has come through.
So this is Leanne Jackson. I was the rapporteur for the group that the ambassador was in. And I took away 3 main points from our discussion. One is that when we're talking about food systems, we have to keep in mind that diversity is the name of the game. There's going to be no one size that fits every situation. And so you need to be able to pivot and find solutions in for specific contexts. And so in that regard, there were 2 ideas that we talked about in different ways. One is, how do you encourage innovation? And so it's innovation both for technologies, like what types of technologies allow us to grow food in places where there is demand and therefore shortens supply chains, or innovation in the way we finance support to farmers and thinking about what the actual needs are on the ground. So the last point that was stressed by a number of people in my room was the need to have really robust partnerships. So the key role of being able to have governments and private sectors, civil society, NGOs, so that you can find solutions that are relevant to the context, which circles back to the diversity of food systems.
Thank you very much indeed, Leanne. Thank you, Hans Huggerbein. Could we now go to Craig Hanson, Vice President of Food, Forest and Water and the Ocean at World Resources Institute.
Yeah, thank you, David. We had a great discussion. A couple of things stuck out. One is it'll be important for the Food System Summit to actually showcase results. We need to be able to show to the world on the issues. The session I was in was around sustainable consumption. Be able to show the world that it actually is possible, can be done, that actually it generates benefits. So it's in a nation's, all the way to a farmer's, to an individual's interest. So showcasing results is important. Secondly, we need to use the summit to raise ambition, to go above and beyond where we are today and really have that ambition-raising moment for the summit. And finally, is to use this to get coalitions together to actually start taking that concrete action, that using that phrase that Ambassador Huggerbein just used a few moments ago. This should not be a talk shop. There's been a lot of talk, a lot of analyses. We need action, we need concrete results. And so making sure that the efforts between now and the summit are really geared towards building up that concrete results and concrete action will be super important. And making sure that it covers the breadth of issues to be covered: food loss and waste, diets, production, you name it. Over.
Craig was talking to us about the work of his group, which was focusing on shifting to sustainable consumption patterns. His Excellency Yaya Olaniran, Minister and Permanent Representative of Nigeria to the Food and Agriculture Organization and past chair of the Committee on Food Security. Yaya is going to talk about advancing equitable livelihoods and value distribution. You have the floor now, sir.
We need to work hard more on what works and make sure that they work not only on time, but as required. The more we do that, the more we get results. There's need to allow technology at the level of every segment, depending on the availability and the ability of the people to use it. Once we have it right, we can always upscale and learn lessons from things that did not work so that they can be adjusted to work. The food systems must be put in place bearing in mind the cultures of people, their interests, improve local cultivars' knowledge, and then integrate it into value chains using all the necessary technology available. Definitely, it will vary from the lists of technology, including the extension services just by using telephone. to the big data and artificial intelligence at the other scale. But we need to work on all of them together on the broad spectrum to achieve the purpose, which definitely and undoubtedly we need to rescue our food system, rescue our health, and at the same time have a balanced soil, water, as well as atmosphere that are conducive to our livelihood.
And that was all about advancing equitable livelihoods and value distribution. So good. And now I'd like to go to Donald Moore, who's past chair of the private sector mechanism from the Global Dairy Platform. And we're going to ask you, Donald, if you wouldn't mind talking about your group that was working on boosting nature-positive production. Donald, you have the floor.
Thanks, David, and nice to see everybody on the call today. It'd be nice if we were in person, but I guess this is second best, and we're lucky to have this technology to support us. A couple of observations from me. The first was that I think it's fair to say that expectations for the summit are high. So no pressure on you, Dr. Kalabata, and your team, but indeed expectations are high, both from building an awareness around the summit and also very much that we want this summit to be an action-oriented, not just a talking opportunity for people. So in our session, which was about nature-positive solutions, we talked about two primary areas. We talked about climate change, biodiversity, and ecosystem services. And I think it's fair to say, somebody made the comment that we need both a push and a pull approach in there. We need to understand what the cost of non-action is, and we also need to create some incentives for action, particularly for farmers. We benefited in our group by what might have been a hiccup in the process, in that we ended up with not just people from the nature positive production, but we also had people from the nutrition stream. And I think that really helped, because we ended up with a real interesting discussion about how do we deliver appropriate nutrition while also addressing these issues of environmental impact, etc. We had a discussion right at the end about landscape approaches, and to me that resonated, because it said there is no one system, no one solution that will deliver everything we need. We need to be very much aware that the solutions, the system, food system will vary at a local level, at a cultural level, and we need to make sure that we're building towards that. And last point I would make from our group was there was quite an emphasis on the need for research and for innovation, both in plant-based solutions and also in livestock solutions. So that would be where I would end my comments, David.
Now we go on to our fifth quick report back. Building resilience to vulnerabilities, shocks and stresses. It's time to ask Jaine Chisholm Cuant, Director General of the Grain and Feed Trade Association and past chair of the private sector mechanism, to share her reflections over the next 90 seconds. Jaine, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nabarro, and thank you to everyone who's participated in our resilience group so far. Just to highlight a few points, we talked very much about the importance of data, both in ensuring access to data and the sharing of data, and this that is necessary to ensure that partnerships are fostered between all stakeholders in the supply chain. We also talked about the change in acceptance and use of new technologies, for example, the use of e-documents, e-phytos to ensure that international trade happens, and also differing attitudes towards acceptance and use of new technologies for food production. We discussed the importance of connectivity, particularly, seeing that we are all internationally connected, and also the nature of cross-sector collaboration. We also talked about the importance of having proactive food security plans, and noted that there were significant food stocks going into the pandemic, and that this was something that needed to be borne in mind for the future. So as I'm sure you can see, we had a very interesting and wide-ranging discussion in our group, and I look forward to returning to it. Thank you.
Jane, thank you very, very much indeed. What a splendid group. I think that what, of course, we're hearing is that in all the areas where you've been working, the only way to move forward is through joint working on issues on which we all can come together.